our friend Sekou Smith. Sekou, good morning. How you doing?
DA, what's up, man? How are you?
I'm great, man. It's always good to catch up with you. And we've been talking about the Andre Iguodala story and saga. What's been your read on this? Because there's certainly a number of people that feel like he has done the Grizzlies dirty and finally got his way when he got out and going to Miami.
I mean, I don't feel that way. I think the Grizzlies and Andre Iguodala had an agreement, and both sides honored the agreement. The Grizzlies told him they were going to move him by the deadline. They did that. They moved him to a place far away that they won't have to see him. They didn't move him to any of the L.A. teams or anywhere out west, which is smart. And they gave him an opportunity to compete at the highest level again. Miami is squarely in the mix in the Eastern Conference, trying to get to the conference finals. And I think it's a great fit for the Heat.
Well, I do too, but my question is, what was his biggest problem with the Grizzlies? Just simply that they weren't championship contenders?
I would imagine that there was that, and the fact that, if he's going to play at this advanced stage of his career, he didn't want to do it on a team where he knew that they didn't have a chance to compete for a title. And with his salary and being moved the way it had to be moved by the Warriors, that was probably a condition of them moving him anyway. Not that he had a no-trade clause or something like that, but you're trying to do a solid for a player who's been great to you, if you're Golden State. So you moved him on to a place where you knew he would be able to get, to the next stop and have the Grizzlies facilitate that. So it's not something shocking or that doesn't go on in the league. And I think this idea that the Grizzlies players felt burned by him not joining them or whatever was really kind of naive on their part. Dylan Brooks, is a young guy, but he should understand that part of the business. And John Morant, for all he's done, he clearly doesn't understand exactly how that works, being so young in his career. But that's just a part of the NBA business when you're dealing with veterans on those big contracts.
That's interesting. Sekou Smith joins us from NBA.com, NBA TV. How good does that addition make the Heat? Can they challenge a team like the Bucks in the East playoffs?
I think their challenge needs to be maybe at a different level right now. They need to be trying to challenge Boston, for what, in Toronto, for what should be that spot right beneath where the Bucks are. I think Iguodala gives them an opportunity to do that, to be in that mix. We'll see how the rest of their season plays out, integrating Iguodala into what they're doing. I think Bam Adebayo, Kendrick Nunn, Tyler Herro, and a lot of those younger guys, Goran Dragic even, have been really good for the Heat, and I think that, as much as anything, is what will propel them if they get into the postseason. But Iguodala is certainly another stroke in the right direction. You want to have as many high-quality, high-pressure players as possible, and he's certainly a guy who's been in all those moments over the course of the past 5 seasons, been in every stage of a championship race that you could be in. So that knowledge and that muscle memory he'll have should benefit Miami when it matters most.
One of the biggest stories of the NBA weekend was the non-goaltend call on Damian Lillard. He went crazy, said that the Blazers got screwed. Did you think that Portland got screwed?
I mean, it was a horrible mistake, and it was, unfortunately, by virtue of the rules, you couldn't go back and fix it. So yeah, it was a human error at its highest, and I'm glad he's not going to get fined for his reaction because it was warranted, for him to be outraged by it. I don't know that it was the right thing to do to react the way in which he did it, but it's certainly justified to be upset about it. But yeah, and if you're a team, DA, that's trying to fight for a playoff spot, think about a couple of years ago when Minnesota and Denver play on the final night of the season to get into the playoffs. Winner goes in, loser stays home.
Yeah.
If you're Portland and you're in that position the last week of the season this year, and you're looking back and saying, where do we slip up? Well, you could look at a bunch of different games, not just this one, but for plenty of games that they didn't win that they probably could have or should have in order to help their cause. This will be something they point to if they end up not making the playoffs and closing that gap in the West.
Yep. Sekou Smith joins us here on the show. So I wanted to ask you about the Kevin Durant comments. He was on the All the Smoke podcast with Steven Jackson, Matt Barnes, and he was once again talking about why he left Oklahoma City and took a shot at the guys there, saying, I didn't want to be with just the skill guys. I wanted to be the shooters and ball handlers, and I was the only shooter there. And he said, I was tired of being the only guy that can make threes, consistently make jump shots. And that's clearly a shot at Russ or other people in the Thunder. Is it our fault as the media for continuing to ask KD about this? Or is it KD's fault for continuing to bring up criticism of his former team?
No, I listened to that last night, by the way, and I think Matt Barnes and Steven Jackson do a fantastic job. They get these guys to talk about things in ways that some of us can't in the traditional media. We haven't been able to crack some of those eggs with some of these players. I listened to it. I thought what he said was really honest, and if that's how he feels, that's his right. And if his former teammates want to take issue with it, they have every right to do so. But I could imagine where that would get frustrating. If you're the guy who ultimately draws all that attention on a team where you have other star players who simply aren't skilled enough in the right areas to help alleviate that pressure, then yeah, I understand you being fed up with it. That still doesn't explain why you left in the way that you left. In terms of the way he talked, according to what I heard, was he knew long before it came time to make those decisions public that he was on his way out. And if your behavior manifested itself in different ways that led people to speculate about your motives or about your intentions, then that's all justified as well. And Kevin Durant needs to understand that as much as he felt frustrated and put upon in certain situations when he was in Oklahoma City, the people's reaction to it is justified. They have every right just to be as frustrated and put upon to see you leave in the fashion in which you left. So I don't have a problem with any of it. I think the honesty is what's best. I wish he'd have been as forthcoming about these things in the moment, but you take it where you can get it.
It's a good point. The LeBron dunk, which was kind of reliving Kobe's dunk a couple of nights ago at Staples Center, is chill-inducing when you see it side by side. And I wonder how much of Kobe's legacy, his passing, and the heaviness of the hearts that we all have, having been Kobe fans or basketball fans and everybody watching this, carries with the Lakers. Do you think that it will be a hindrance? Do you think it can be an energizer? Do you think it's neither one of those, that the Lakers carry with them and LeBron does Kobe's passing for the rest of the season?
I don't think they carry it with them as much as it lingers over their season, no matter what they do. Whether it's out of mind and they're locked in and focused on the, whatever the immediate, task at hand be, whether that's the regular season and the stretch run, the playoffs in the Western Conference, trying to beat the Clippers and whoever else out for that spot atop the West to play for a championship. Whenever their season ends, however it ends, I think you can't write the story of a Lakers season where Kobe passes away in the fashion in which he did without mentioning that prominently. I don't know that I like the idea of them carrying that burden as outwardly as they're doing right now. I think it's tough to put that extra helping of pressure on top of a team that was already under pressure to win and win big this year. And I think All-Star Weekend, to me, DA, might be the opportunity to finally everybody, collectively, everybody's going to be in Chicago, the entire league, the eyes of the world will be watching. That might be the time where you exhale, and then there's the memorial service on the 24th. Maybe after that, the Lakers not move past it, because it's never going to, I don't know that the Kobe wound will ever be healed for Lakers fans or for that organization. That's something that's going to sting forever. But I think then and only then will you have an opportunity to put it in its proper compartment in the course of this season for the Lakers and move on to try and reach some of those goals they had before Kobe and his daughter and those other folks passed away in that helicopter crash.
In 2 weeks, we'll have his service, his memorial at Staples Center. Where are you? Because I've had a lot of people, including myself, talk to others and say it still doesn't feel real. Every time I read about it, see his highlights, see his interviews, it still does not feel real that he's no longer with us. Where are you on that processing of the news?
It's hard. I saw Brian Shaw in our NBA TV studio Saturday night. It's the first time I've seen him since Kobe passed. And I watched him on the air and watched how emotional this has been for a lot of his former teammates and close friends. I think you kind of resign yourself to the fact that, everybody has, a start and end date in this life. And Kobe's came far too early, in anybody's eyes. I don't know how, for him to lose his life at 41 and then to have his daughter involved. I don't know how I feel about it, to be honest with you, because I wake up some days and it's almost out of mind until you run into something that jogs your memory and goes, oh, my goodness, I cannot believe that happened. But I don't know that the memorial service or anything else is going to shake that for me. There will be reminders about Kobe and his legacy that come up in the future that are always going to bring you back to that moment when you got the news, which was jarring. I mean, it was literally jarring for the entire world, but especially for people like us who have been in his orbit and in the NBA ecosystem for as long as we have. To have him snatched away in the fashion in which it happened is going to be something that sticks out to you probably for your remaining days when you think about Kobe Bryant and the Lakers.
Yeah, well said. I don't think it ever becomes normal. I don't think no matter how much time you have passed, it ever becomes, oh, yeah, okay, I can accept that. It's just so hard. Sekou Smith joining us this morning on the show. Before I let you go, as an adopted ATLian, what is your preferential Outkast album? Is it ATLians, Stankonia, Aquemini? What is it?
Mine is Aquemini, and I'm that's the soundtrack of my youth. So I've always felt a tug, to them, and living here for the last, since 2005. Some of the references on all of those albums didn't make tangible sense to me when I was listening to them and living elsewhere. But now that I live here, those gems in the lyrics on those albums really hit home when you live in Metro Atlanta. It's fun to think about it, and still a great listen. I was listening to some Outkast last night when I was doing some work around the house here, and I'll tell you, it sounds as good to me now as it did, 20 years ago, and I hope it sounds as good 20 years from now.
Yeah, man, that's some 90s masterpieces right there. So that early Outkast, that is awesome. Sekou Smith, got to listen to the Hang Time podcast because he is all over it. They do an awesome job covering all angles of the NBA regularly. So check that out if you're an NBA fan. Follow him on Twitter as well because you see him on the NBA TV as well as read him at NBA.com. Sekou, it's always a pleasure to catch up, my man. Thanks so much for doing it today.